She thought she could humiliate me in front of a crowd, turning my day into chaos. First, it was an empty bottle, then words that cut deeper than any insult. But I stayed silent until it was her turn to feel what true disgrace is. Now, let's start from the very beginning. Let me set the stage. My name's James, I'm 32, and yeah, I clean the streets of a small Midwestern town. Glamorous? Not exactly, but hey, someone's got to do it. My job isn't about prestige or power. It's about keeping things clean for people who will barely notice. And most days, that's fine by me. Until she showed up. I'd just started my usual morning routine. Picture this: a crisp sunrise, the hum of coffee machines in nearby cafes, and me with my trusty broom, sweeping up after last night's chaos. It was peaceful, almost meditative, you know? Then, in the corner of my eye, I spotted her. Rebecca. Rebecca wasn't your average passerby. Oh no, she was what you'd call entitled royalty. Early 40s, sharp heels clacking like a metronome, and a wardrobe so loud it screamed, "Look at me!" She wasn't walking, she was parading. And as usual, she was aiming straight for me. "Good morning, Rebecca," I said with my best polite smile. I figured a little courtesy might keep things calm. Spoiler, I was wrong. She stopped dead in her tracks, her oversized sunglasses sliding down just enough to show her narrowed eyes. "Morning?" she repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call this mess?" Now, here's the thing about Rebecca. She didn't just dislike me, she despised me. Why? Because I dared to exist in her town, doing her streets. And today, she was clearly in the mood to remind me of that. "You missed a spot," she added, pointing at some invisible speck on the sidewalk. I ignored her and kept sweeping. No use feeding the drama. But Rebecca, she thrived on reactions. And my silence only fueled her. "You know," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the morning calm like nails on a chalkboard, "this town was so much better before certain people started showing up." Oh, I knew where this was going. The subtext was about as subtle as a neon sign. I clenched the broom a little tighter but didn't look up. "Deep breaths, James," I told myself. Deep breaths. This wasn't the first time Rebecca had pulled this stunt, and it wouldn't be the last. But then she did something different, something that turned this morning into a day I'd never forget. She strutted over to a trash can, picked up an empty soda bottle, and hurled it toward me. It didn't hit me, it clattered to the ground near my feet. But the noise? Loud enough to make heads turn. A few people stopped, their coffees halfway to their lips, watching like this was some kind of live performance. "Oops," Rebecca said, fake innocence dripping from her tone. "Guess I slipped." I froze. For a split second, I considered saying something, anything, but what could I even say? I bent down, picked up the bottle, and tossed it into my bag. My hands shook a little, but I didn't let her see. "Oh, come on," Rebecca pressed, her voice rising. "That's it? No witty comeback? You just gonna sweep your way through life, or do you actually have a spine?" The crowd was growing. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for a reaction. A part of me wanted to snap, to yell something that would wipe that smug grin off her face. But instead, I tightened my grip on the broom and turned away. "Coward," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. As I walked to the next block, the weight of her words and the stares of the crowd pressed down on me. Rebecca might have won this round, but something in the pit of my stomach told me this wasn't over, and I was right. The next morning, I woke up determined to shake off yesterday's mess. "Let it go, James," I told myself, staring into my coffee like it held the answers to life. "It's just another day." Spoiler, it was not just another day. I was back on Main Street, broom in hand, trying to get into my rhythm. Sweep, bag, repeat. It's a simple routine, but there's something oddly calming about it. At least there was. Around mid-morning, I heard that all too familiar clack of heels on the pavement. My stomach sank. Here we go again. Rebecca was back, but this time, she brought reinforcements. Her friend, a woman who looked like she stepped straight out of a country club catalog, was right beside her, holding a tiny dog that seemed just as judgmental as its owner. "Look who it is!" Rebecca's voice rang out, loud enough to catch the attention of nearby shoppers. The town's self-appointed janitor. I sighed internally, but kept sweeping. Ignoring her, was my go-to move. But Rebecca wasn't one to be ignored. "Excuse me," she called, stepping closer. "Didn't your boss teach you how to actually clean? Or are you just naturally bad at it?" Her friend giggled, clutching her little dog like it was a trophy. People were starting to glance our way, pretending not to stare too much. I could feel the tension building, like a thunderstorm about to break. I finally looked up. "Good morning, Rebecca," I said, keeping my voice even. "Anything I can help you with?" "Help?" she repeated mockingly. "Oh, sweetie, you couldn't help if you tried." That's when things took a turn. Rebecca's eyes landed on a garbage can near the sidewalk, and I saw that mischievous glint, the one that always spelled trouble. Before I could react, she grabbed the edge of the trash can and tipped it over. The contents spilled out. Empty coffee cups, fast food wrappers, and of course half a smoothie that splattered across the pavement. "Oops," she said with a shrug, her grin widening. "Looks like you missed a spot." The crowd murmured, a few people pulling out their phones to record. My hands tightened around the broomstick. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. But inside, I was boiling. "Rebecca," I said, my voice steady but firm, "you've crossed the line." She laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that made my blood boil even more. "Oh, really? And what are you going to do about it?" Her friend chimed in, smirking. "Yeah, what's he going to do? Sweep us to death?" The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure whether to intervene or just keep watching the drama unfold. My mind raced. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let it slide like every other time. But another part of me, the part that had taken one insult too many, refused to back down. "I'm just here to do my job," I said finally, bending down to start cleaning up the mess. "But I'd appreciate it if you didn't make it harder." Rebecca's grin disappeared, replaced by a look of mock offense. "Oh, so now you're giving me orders? That's cute." Her friend leaned in, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "I think he's getting a little too comfortable." And that's when Rebecca said it. The sentence that flipped the script entirely. "You don't even belong here," she sneered. "Why don't you pack up and go back to where you came from? People like you are the reason this town's going downhill." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. The crowd went silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I stood there, frozen, as her words sank in. This wasn't just about a spilled trash can anymore. It was personal. It was ugly. Before I could respond, Rebecca wasn't done. She grabbed another trash can, this one bigger, and tipped it over, too, the contents spilling directly onto my shoes. "There," she said with a smirk. "Now it matches the mess you are." I straightened up, my heart pounding. The crowd was no longer just watching, they were waiting. For what? I didn't know. But something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up for every insult, every degrading comment, every bit of trash I'd ever had to pick up, literal or figurative. And I knew exactly what I was going to do. The air felt heavy, like the entire town had stopped to watch this moment. Rebecca stood there smug and unbothered, as if she owned the sidewalk, the street, and everyone on it. The spilled trash around me was nothing compared to the garbage coming out of her mouth. And the crowd? They were glued to the scene, phones raised, recording every second like it was the season finale of some reality show. I took a deep breath and slowly straightened up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that had built up over the years. Every snide comment, every dismissive glance, every time someone like Rebecca thought they were better than me just because of how they looked or where they came from. It was all bubbling to the surface. Rebecca tilted her head, her smile widening. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you just realized your place?" I looked her straight in the eyes. The crowd went silent. For a second, it felt like the world had shrunk down to just the two of us. "You know what, Rebecca?" I said, my voice calm but steady. "You're right, I do know my place. My place is here, cleaning up after people who think they can leave their mess for someone else to deal with. My place is doing a job that most people don't even notice. But without it, this town would fall apart. So yeah, I know my place." The crowd murmured, a ripple of curiosity spreading through them. Rebecca's smile faltered just a little. But I wasn't done. "But what about you?" I asked, stepping forward. "What's your place? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your place is tearing people down just to feel better about yourself. It looks like your place is walking around this town, acting like it owes you something when all you've done is make it worse." Her face froze, but I could see the cracks forming. She opened her mouth to say something, but I raised my hand, stopping her cold. No, you don't get to talk right now, I said firmly, Miss. You've had your moment. Now it's my turn. The crowd was leaning in now, their attention locked on me. Even the phones had dropped slightly, as if they didn't want to miss a single word. You see this trash? I gestured to the mess she'd made. This is exactly what you are, a mess. Not because of what you've spilled here, but because of what you carry inside. All that hate, all that entitlement, it's not just ugly, it's might. You think stepping on someone else makes you taller, but it doesn't. It just makes you smaller. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. I could see people nodding, exchanging glances. Even Rebecca's friend was inching away from her, looking embarrassed to be part of this spectacle. Rebecca finally found her voice, but it was shaky. You don't know anything about me, she snapped. You're just some what? I interrupted, my voice rising just enough to cut her off. Some guy who works hard? Some guy who treats people with respect even when they don't deserve it? Yeah, that's me. And you're the one who doesn't belong here, not because of where you're from, but because of what you've become. The crowd erupted into applause. It wasn't loud at first, just a smattering of claps, but it grew quickly. People started cheering, shouting things like, "That's right," and "You tell her." Rebecca's face turned red, bright, blotchy red. She looked around, realizing for the first time that the crowd wasn't on her side. "You think you're so smart," she hissed, her voice trembling with anger. "This isn't over." "You're right," I said, stepping closer, my voice low enough that only she could hear. "It's not over. Because every person here is going to remember this moment. Every time they see you, they'll think about today. And that's not my mess to clean up. That's yours." Rebecca turned on her heel and stormed off, her heels clicking against the pavement like the final notes of a bad symphony. Her friends scurried after her, clutching her little dog as if it could shield her from the weight of the moment. I stood there for a moment, letting the applause wash over me. But it wasn't about the crowd, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about finally standing up for myself, for every person who's ever been knocked down by someone like Rebecca. And for once, I felt free. As I bent down to start cleaning up the mess, because, let's face it, someone still had to, I heard someone in the crowd say, "Man, that guy's a legend." I smiled to myself, shook my head, and got back to work. Because at the end of the day, that's who I am, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. What would you have done in James's shoes? Have you ever faced something similar or seen someone close to you go through a situation like this? Share your thoughts, drop a comment, and let's start a conversation. Don't forget to like if this story resonated with you. Every interaction helps spread awareness. This story was